Alrighty, well, welcome everyone to our virtual info session. My name is Carolina. I am a program coordinator with JusticeCorps, and I've actually been involved with the program for several years now. I originally joined as a thing ever. Really, it gave me hands-on experience. It allowed me to get involved directly with the community and give back to others. So when I graduated from college, I participated in the program as a full-time fellow, and then I'm back now as a staff member. So it's been full circle for me, and it's honestly, like I said, been the best opportunity I could have found while I was still in school. So our whole program is about providing equal access to justice. And the way we do that is really by making sure that we're being, a program that meets people where they're at and providing legal services to them. And so for some reason, I'm having another bit of, there we go. So before I can tell you what our members do on a daily basis, it's really helpful to understand sort of, how our program is made possible. And it's really because of AmeriCorps. So if you've never heard of, and it was created back in the 1990s under the Bill Clinton administration. And it was modeled after the Peace Corps. So in the Peace Corps, they send you to a foreign country to do service for 2 years. But a lot of people looked at that model and realized that there's a need for it here in our local communities as well. So that's how AmeriCorps came to be. And every year they fund hundreds of different programs. Some are very well known, such as Teach for America and City Year. But ours specifically is trying to, help individuals within the legal system. We are a very large program here in California. We have 3 regions, LA, I never did either prior to JusticeCorps, but they're really statewide agencies sort of putting forward the rules and regulations for all the courthouses across the state. And our program is really immersed into the community in order to give back to our members and provide an amazing experience for them. We find that it's best to be in collaboration with many different entities. So we partner with government agencies, nonprofits, and also, universities here in Los Angeles. So California, Dominguez Hills is one of them. And that really allows us to, like I said, recruit a talented pool of members who are diverse, but who are also interested in giving back to others. So really, in order for me to explain why the work that we do is so important, it's important to sort of backtrack a second and explain why our program is necessary. In California, there's really been a rise in the number of individuals who cannot afford an attorney. And it's not just in California, right? It's all over the country. We repeatedly have folks who are turned away from the legal system, and the courts are meant to be this fair and impartial government institution. But if you have, a large group of the population that cannot access that court, then it's not really equitable, nor is it providing equal access to justice. So, the reason why folks can't access the courts is really for a lot of reasons. But here's just really sort of a very short and concise summary, even though you could write books about this, and there's a large, body of research that's done on this issue. But the first thing is that the legal system in general is extremely complicated. It was designed for attorneys in mind. These are attorneys who go to undergrad for 4 years, and then they go to law school for 3 years. So that's total 7 years of post-secondary education. And when someone goes to the courts and they don't have an attorney, the courts don't make any accommodations for them or exceptions. They're still held to the same standard as a private attorney would. So it's really difficult when you have someone who, didn't go past middle school or didn't complete their high school education to then be in the same position as a private attorney. And then when you throw in the language barriers, it becomes a lot more difficult for individuals to represent themselves. And so once again, the courts don't make any exceptions. If you are an immigrant from China and your primary language is Mandarin, the courts are still expecting you to complete your forms in English and submit your declarations to the judge in English. And you can imagine that's really difficult, especially if you don't have someone who speaks a second language in your household, right? Someone who can interpret on your behalf. And speaking from my personal experience, when I was, in JusticeCorps as a member, a lot of times I would be assisting individuals who did speak English, but even then it was extremely difficult for them to understand the legal terminology because there's this educational barrier too, right? Even if you speak English, as soon as you hear the words proof of service, declarations of disclosure, community property versus separate property, you could sort of see people lose their attention, right? Because again, these are terms that we don't use on a daily basis. So even if you speak English, it doesn't mean that the legal system is going to be a walk in the park for you. And in general, the legal system is a very confusing process that tends to lead to a lot of unresolved cases. So I'll sort of give you a crash course, on divorce. In California, the fastest you can get divorced is in 6 months. Excuse me. And that's assuming that everything goes well in your case. That's assuming that you don't have any mistakes or that none of your forms are rejected. So within those 6 months, you have to petition the court asking them, for a divorce. And that petition is extremely long and complicated. There are a lot of forms that go into it. And so you have to, put down everything regarding your assets, your debts, and then you got to categorize it, whether it belongs to the, marriage or if it's just yours. Once you're done with that petition, you have to file it in court. And you have to, make a copy and find someone over the age of 18 to give a copy to your spouse. That person, assuming it's a friend or an acquaintance, has to sign under penalty of perjury that they did in fact give those forms to your spouse. Then you have to wait 30 days to see if your spouse is going to make a response to the court. And if they don't, after 30 days, you have to go back to court, ask the court to confirm that your spouse did not respond, and then you have to prepare that the judge is going to sign off on. But that entire process, like I said, takes 6 months. Unfortunately, a lot of folks don't realize all the steps involved. So they go in to do step one and they think they're done. And it's not until years later when they're trying to get remarried or they're trying to, collect their pension or retirement account that they realize that they don't have the final orders. So then they have to come back to court, and then we have to sort of be the bearer of bad news and tell them, you're not technically divorced, but we can provide you guidance, we can give you all the information you need to file for that divorce. So a lot of individuals saw this, right? Not just judges, but also public officials. And they realized that they had to do something about this system because it just wasn't working. So they created what's called self-help centers. And these are, places where someone could go in to receive free assistance. And on paper, this seems like a perfect solution, right? You have a couple of attorneys who are licensed and can provide all the information that a litigant may need. But in practice, it's not necessarily the ideal solution that they anticipated. Self-help centers have a lot of limitations. The first is always related to funding, right? Funding is very limited, which results in sort of a skeleton staff. If you're lucky, you might have 1 or 2 attorneys at any given time and a couple paralegals. But again, there's no way that they can, meet the demands of the public. So then they have to institute these policies, of people receiving assistance on a first come, first served basis. And again, this may seem like the most, fair way to practice, but I'll give you an example. let's say you have a young, 30-something-year-old who's trying to get divorced, finds out about the self-help center because they have access to, a working phone, and they're just more knowledgeable about the system. So they, make their way down early one day to the courthouse. They're the first in line, so they're technically guaranteed to receive service that day. On the other hand, let's say you have a single mother who's trying to file for divorce from a somewhat abusive spouse. The mom gets up early at 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which, believe it or not, happens a lot for a lot of the litigants that we see. Gets herself ready, gets her kids ready, drops off her kids with a friend or neighbor because she made childcare arrangements. Then she gets on public transportation, questions, where can I go for help? Versus, from a supervising attorney who can really get into the sort of nitty-gritty details of saying, Sarah was under my supervision. I saw her work directly with multiple litigants on any given time. I saw how she handled very stressful situations with such ease and, calming presence. So that, I think, is a much more effective letter. And really, as a JusticeCorps member, you're trained to provide direct service, but before you can sort of get into the front lines, you go through a training process to make sure you understand what is the legal information that we're supposed to convey. So really, the direct service comes down in one of two ways. The first is helping them complete the legal forms. These are the same legal forms that a judge is going to look at during a trial or during a hearing. So those forms are really important. And then another way is through providing, information on how a litigant can complete a case. So what are the next steps? But regardless of what type of assistance you're providing, everything you do is going to be reviewed by an attorney. So there's never pressure of, I made a mistake, I'm scared that this person's case is going to be ruined. That will never happen, because once again, the supervisors are there to provide all of the clarification that you may need. And I find that it's really helpful because there's that happy balance, right? Where, you are challenged to work with litigants independently, but the support is there for you to always lean back on. So if, for example, you come across a very difficult case that you just don't know how to handle, because there's so many details involved, you can always ask your supervising attorney, and on any given day, you will have dozens of questions. Trust me when I say that, for any 4-hour shift, I was asking about 10 questions per hour because, it's the legal stuff. So it matters and details are important. But the really big component about our program is that we're providing mutual information. We're not giving advice, nor are we advocating for one specific person. And the example I always draw on is, say you're arrested, right? And you go to criminal court, you appear in front of a judge. The first question that that judge is going to ask you is whether or not you can afford to hire your own private attorney. If you say no, a public defender will be assigned to you. And that is, an attorney who's going to always be in your corner and try to get the best possible outcome in your case. But in our program, we're all about, making sure that we disclose all of the legal information to a litigant. So if a woman comes in telling me a very sad story about her case, I can't sit there and cry with her and tell her, I'm so sorry, I think your husband's a jerk and I think you should get every, benefit of the doubt. I can just tell her, under California law, these are the different options that you can file for. You have option A, B, and C. These are the rights and responsibilities that you have under each action. You tell me what you would like to do. How would you like to move forward? And that really sort of puts the decision-making power back on the individual rather than on yourself. And through our program, we have 3 different opportunities. The first, and I think the largest, portion of our program is through the academic year. So these are students who, like I said, are still in school and decide to sign up for a year of service. And I know a year of service seems like a very daunting commitment while you're in school. So if you finish in May, then by May you would be done with JusticeCorps. And again, you would come in once or twice per week. So you can do a full day versus 2 half days. And even though this is a volunteer opportunity, at the end you earn an education award. And the education award, you can use it for any school fees. So if you've accrued loans or if you've got tuition to pay for, that can definitely help. Then we also have our summer term. The summer term this year, unfortunately, was canceled due to COVID-19, but we hope to have a full cohort, for next summer, where students are with us full time over the 2.5-month period. It is once again a volunteer opportunity, but you are eligible to earn the education award at the end. And then sort of the last position we have is the fellowship. And the fellowship, really, you're known as like the stars of the show. The fellows are, committing 12 months of service, and this is full time because it's meant to be a gap year opportunity for those students who have already graduated and are perhaps considering law school or a different grad school program. And it is a paid position because, again, it's full time. We offer a monthly stipend plus health insurance. And then at the end, you are eligible $1,000, and there's a loan forbearance period. So during your year of service, if you've accumulated student loans during undergrad, you will not be required to make any payments on your student loans for that full 12-month period. And in addition to that, any interest that your loans are accumulating, AmeriCorps, the national corporation, will act, but they will definitely take care of the interest. And so, with JusticeCorps here in Los Angeles, we're such a large city, right? And we want to make sure that we're providing equal access to justice to everyone, not just the folks who are, in downtown. So I know this map isn't really the best in terms of color coordinating, but these dots represent not just our partner universities, and as you can see, Dominguez Hills is there, but it's also with, service placements. So the red dots, which are a bit darker, if you can see, are all of the service sites that you can choose from. So if you decide to apply to JusticeCorps during your application process, we will ask you to submit your first and second preference. So in a perfect world, where could you serve? And this is really important because we want to make sure that we're providing services to everyone in Los Angeles County, even for the folks up in Lancaster, but that it's a convenient commute for you as a student. So if you're attending Dominguez Hills and you're living in the area, then you can select from, Compton, Whittier, Torrance, and Long Beach. So again, if you are living in Pomona because, that's just where your family resides and you're attending school in Dominguez Hills, then you can select the Pomona Courthouse for your service placement. Where you are assigned to serve is going to be the same for the full year. So you don't ever have to worry about moving around, which is pretty nice. And this is a general timeline. This is typically our timeline before COVID-19. Obviously now things have shifted a lot, but we are still accepting applications for the academic year program on a rolling basis. So if it's something that you're really interested in, highly encourage you to apply. And if you're interested, but you realize that you've already got a lot going on this year, then I highly encourage you to consider it for the next year, or maybe once you graduate. Like I said, we have different positions available because we understand that, everyone's academic journey is different. So for some students, you've got to work, 2 jobs during school, and, you can't really take on a volunteer opportunity. That's totally fine. Maybe once you graduate, you can apply for the fellowship. On the other hand, if you're in school right now and you're considering grad school in the future, but you realize that you need that experience to beef up your resume, to apply skills in the real world, then highly encourage you to consider the academic year. And as part of our application, I think it's fairly straightforward and easy, but we do have 2 short essay questions that we always ask. And it's always usually one version of these 2. And it's really trying to figure out, who are you and what are you interested in? We receive hundreds of applications for each position. And even though we don't have enough positions to, offer to everyone, this is really important for you to work on your essay to show us who you are. Because again, we're making decisions based on paper. So if, I look at your application and, it's only pretty standard stuff and nothing really sticks out, I'm going to make a decision based on the essays, and what you talk about. And then that can be a deciding factor whether you get invited to participate in an interview. So the essays are really geared to learning more about what you've done in the past in relation to community service and volunteer opportunities. And then also, I talked a lot about how we're focused on professional development and giving back to our members. So tell us, why are you interested in doing a program like this? What can you gain out of it? And don't be shy. Some students come up to me and they're like, well, I want to do law school and I know that this would be perfect. It's like, great, tell us about that, because I know that when I'm making decisions, I really want to make sure that I offer these opportunities to students who can grow from this position and can really, benefit from in the future. So the selection process is obviously, are you community oriented? Do you want to help others? Because even though we're offering an amazing, gig for college students to have, at the end of the day, it should always come back to you're doing this to help others, not just to beef up your resume. Because, some of the days can be very challenging. You will have some very long shifts that seem to go on forever just because there's so much paperwork involved and there's so many details too. So the students who really care about giving back are the ones that, flourish from this role. And then also, do you have some sort of public interest aspirations? Do you want to go into law, government, the nonprofit sectors? How can we help you get there? But we're also very realistic, and we want to make sure that the students we select are able to commit to the program for the full year. Just because, like I mentioned, the self-help centers really need, students who are going to be dedicated, because they can spend so much time training a student, but if they, leave after a month, then it's not necessarily worth it. And then can you contribute, diverse skill sets, languages, experience, anything that makes you unique? We are so excited to hear about. And then lastly, can you meet the eligibility requirements? So as an AmeriCorps program, all of our students, including staff members, have to go through a live scan screening process. And through that, that means that, you have to run your fingerprints through the FBI, California Department of Justice, and that's something that our courts HR department will take care of. But if you do not consent to a background check, then unfortunately that's sort of automatic grounds for not being able to participate in the program. And then the benefits. I could really honestly talk about the benefits all day. I am, a diehard JusticeCorps fan, not just, as a staff member, but as someone who really took a lot from this program and, grew as a result of it. The first is obviously just the money, right? The education award. This is money that you can apply for school that can help you. But not just that, I think my favorite component of the program was really the network that I built. I was able to establish professional, mentor/mentee relationships with my supervisors who are licensed attorneys. But really, I gained lifelong friendships from JusticeCorps. I know that my university tends to brag about, their alumni network, but in all honesty, I found that anytime I'm trying to, do something with my life, whether it's a personal or professional aspiration, these are the people I go to and I lean on. It's, the students that I served with, it's the reps, the university representatives that I was able to work alongside with. And so it's really important that as a young student, you understand that, yes, it's really crucial to have, amazing supervisors who you can ask for a letter of recommendation from, but it's just as crucial to have friends and, colleagues that are all passionate about the same, type of work that you are in, and who are also really smart, right? You're doing this program while you're going to school. So clearly you can juggle a lot. And then if your university allows, we're more than happy to sign off documents so that you may apply for course credit. So, sometimes JusticeCorps will, a lot of our students will get course credit through their internship, and JusticeCorps definitely meets the eligibility. For the summer session, some students may also apply for stipends to the university. That's something that you have to do your research ahead of time. But if it's possible, we definitely encourage it. And then really, you're increasing your professional development as a result of this program. You are learning so much about, how to communicate with others. You're going to be dealing with some litigants who are crying, who are emotional, and are going through a really rough patch in their lives. And to be able to offer them assistance and to walk them through a very complicated system is extremely rewarding. And I know that I still think of a lot of the litigants I helped just because that human to human interaction and connection that you establish with someone while they're going through a very difficult time in their lives is something that you will never forget. So I think that's definitely an added benefit. And then, like I mentioned, communication skills are paramount. I have yet to see a job posting on Indeed or through another, job searching platform that doesn't list communication skills as, part of the job. You have to learn how to communicate with others, whether it's in writing or, in conversations. And this program definitely gives you the opportunity to practice those skills every single time that you come into the courthouse. And then lastly, for our fellows, those are the full-time members, so students who have already graduated from college, they can apply for the student loan deferment. So with, such an expensive degree, which is college, any four-year university, I think it's definitely an added benefit to have that. So this is my contact information. Apologize for the font. I didn't realize that the font was going to be so funky. So that's my email address. You can always email me with any questions that you have, whether you're curious to know more about, what our members do on a day-to-day basis, or if you're just curious about, the job perspectives for someone who's done JusticeCorps. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to chat over the phone or an email. And then here's the link to apply to our program. You can submit an application online. As of right now, we're accepting applications on a rolling basis. So that's going to be for the academic year, which kicks off typically mid-September. And then lastly, here's our Instagram handle. I think Instagram is really the best way to stay up to date on all the information and details about our program. So feel free to send us a direct message or just to follow us to see what are the cool and exciting things that our members are doing. So that's really the end of the presentation for me, but I'm more than happy to take any questions if any of you would like to submit them via the chat function, or if you would like to unmute yourself, more than happy to take those too.
For setting up this presentation. I really appreciate it. I graduated about, a week and a half ago from Dominguez, and I'm highly interested in the fellowship program. You mentioned that you're accepting on a rolling basis. Is that correct?
Hi, Oscar. Well, first off, congrats on graduating college. That's a really, really big step. Yes, so for the The positions that we're accepting applications on a rolling basis as of right now is just for the academic year, and that's open to current college students. However, I will say, for the fellowship, we have a full sort of class of fellows who have committed to the program and that we've extended acceptances for. However, if you would like to submit your application, you definitely can. Sometimes fellows back out at the last minute and a position becomes available. So, we're going to look towards our portal to see who has submitted an application.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you for the kind words. Thank you so much. Okay, awesome. So I'll still submit the application, and should I shoot you an email just in case, just to notify you that I submitted it and whatnot?
Yeah, you're more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to receive an email from you. And yeah, I definitely make a note of those applications that we receive later on, just so that, like I said, if a position opens up, we can look at those.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Any other questions? Feel free, like I said, to unmute yourself. I'm more than happy to take the questions right now. Alrighty, so it looks like we don't have any questions. I just checked the chat function on here and we don't have any submitted. But like I said, if you have a personal question, feel free. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you so much. It's a great presentation. My name is Cherie Frantella, and like our previous graduate, I also am class of 2020 at Dominguez. Very exciting. So we learned through AmeriCorps that there was an age group. I think it was between 18 and 25. I was just wondering if does that apply as well to the JusticeCorps?
Hi, Sherry. So once again, congrats, man. Kudos to class of 2020 and really any college graduate. So I didn't get everything from your question. Sorry, I know the audio has been breaking up just a little, but if I understood you correctly, you were asking if there was an age limit for someone to serve?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we technically do not have an age limit, except for our members have to be at least 18 years and older. But beyond that, there's no age limit. And the reason they have to be 18 and older is just because obviously it's a lot of sensitive information and you're working in a courthouse with confidential documents. But as long as you've graduated and are interested in the fellowship or still in school and interested in the academic year, you can apply even if you're beyond the typical college demographic age group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, Carolina. It's Oscar again. I have another question.
Go ahead.
Awesome. So you mentioned the service centers. Does that basically translate to the Compton Courthouse, the Torrance Courthouse, the Long Beach, etc.?
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I think a lot of times I just use them interchangeably without explaining. Yes, all of our self-help centers, with the exception of one, all of them are located in a Los Angeles Superior Court courthouse. So when you go into service, you will be going through the courthouse, security screening process. And the reason why I say self-help centers is because you're not working in a courtroom, where a judge is. You're working in a self-help center where there are attorneys and you're working directly with the litigants.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Any other questions? Alrighty, so I'm not sure if, Mariah, are you still on the call?
On the first floor.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Mariah. So it looks like I addressed